Welcome to the Round 4 injury update presented by AIA Vitality. So the major issue from our Friday night game was obviously Darcy Cameron, who was subbed out at three-quarter time, and about a minute before the three-quarter time siren had a significant impact to his knee. It was a pretty clear-cut one for our medical staff on the night, in that once we sort of did the knee test, we saw the MCL was loose, so we're reasonably confident that was the result we're going to get on scans. But we always know with the knee anything can happen, so we just had to wait to make sure we get those scans before we could provide the further clarity. So that scan has confirmed that it's a high-grade MCL sprain, so that's the medial ligament. We know that they are usually in the area of around about 6 to 8 weeks. If it's, depending on how they heal and how they stick up, these are the things that we look for early on in rehab. So Darcy's in a brace at the moment. He'll be in that brace for the next 2 weeks. And then at the 2-week mark, he's allowed to start some rehab activity and some lighter work. And then the idea is at the 4-week mark, he comes out of the brace, gets an assessment on that knee, sees whether the healing has happened or not, with how sticky it is, and whether the test they do on the night that shows a loose ligament shows that that's tightened up. And if that's tightened up at the 4-week mark, then it's all systems go and we rehab him up from there. So that's the process for Darcy over the next month, and then we'll be able to provide some updates on the way about how that's healing. So that was the unfortunate one from Friday night's game. Nathan Kruger, he's coming back from the shoulder injury, and he's made some real big progresses over the last fortnight. So you'll remember a couple of weeks ago I spoke about that he still had one area of strength that was really just coming along as we expected, and that's made a huge jump in the last week, which is really positive and a testament to the work Kruger's put through. So he's back into full training now. So he's now cleared to do full training and full contact. He's done a lot of one-on-one contact with our development coaches on the sideline at the moment. Been in a lot of football drills without that end stage contact, marking contest, full tackling drills. He's now cleared for all of that. So we'll give him a week or two of that, and then see how he handles that kind of work with the marking contest, 3-on-1, ruck work, hit the ground, get up and tackle people. We're not expecting any issues because he's really in a safe space now. He's past the 12-week mark, which is a big medical clearance. He's strong in the gym, and he's really progressed through all of the contact really nicely. So hopefully he plays probably around 5 or 6 at the moment. We've just got to see how he progresses and how confident he is in the training over the next couple of weeks. From the VFL game, we had Will Kelly had a concussion, so he enters the concussion protocol. We know that's a minimum of 12 days, but then he has to be symptom-free every step of the way there. So he's just in that protocol now, going through the stages with the doctor. We'll hopefully be able to provide an update on how he progresses this week when we chat to you next week, and see how he's progressed through the early stages of that concussion protocol. Now, Arlo Draper, he's been in the concussion protocol for a few weeks now, and again, with the protocol, we need him to be symptom-free every step of the way. And Arlo had some sessions a few weeks ago where that wasn't the case, so we had to sort of step back, make sure that he was symptom-free, and then progress forward. And then you live in that space of going progress forward, having some symptoms, we've got to scale it back, and that's just what the protocol is, and make sure that we've got the health and safety of Arlo at the forefront of our decision-making of when we progress. We were able to progress a little bit today with Arlo, and he's responded really well from that. Again, it's a 48-hour response. So concussion can respond negatively immediately after the session, or within 24 hours, or within 48 hours post. So he has another 48-hour window now where hopefully he's symptom-free and he doesn't regress at all, and then we can keep on building the intensity of the work that he's doing. So he'll maintain the intensity he's got now for a week, and then we'll be able to provide an update on where he's at next week. But he's starting to head in the right direction, and not doing the forward and back that he was doing a couple of weeks ago. Aiden Begg with his back, he's had some medical interventions over the past. So again, he got scans last week which showed a little bit of back signs. He's had some medical interventions now through medications and other things that have assisted in how he's feeling with his back, and he's been able to get in some work and do a running session and these things, and he's starting to feel much better. What we're seeing now with Beggy is that he's a bit underdone from a workload point of view, because the back's held him back from some of the workload that we've wanted to do with him over the past week. So now we've got to make sure we build up his running loads over the next couple of weeks, and we're really confident that it'll be round 6 or 7 that we see Beggy in some game time. Mason Cox, so he was the late withdrawal or the sort of exclusion in the middle of last week, and he had a rib injury that ended up having an internal injury. So it had some injury to some of the organs internally. So the spleen specifically is one area that was damaged, and he had a bit of medical stuff go on over that, and he's basically at the point now where that's all clear. He's had some interventions through surgery and that have fixed the issue that was at hand. So we've got a real early onset of identification of that issue, and we fixed it. Now he's on 2 weeks of complete rest, and then he'll have a follow-up scan that then determines whether we can progress or whether we need to hold that complete rest. So the time frame at the moment is a bit unsure. We need to wait for the follow-up scan in a couple of weeks' time, which we'll be able to provide more information at that time. Howie the same, so reported over the weekend again, obviously that he was back in hospital and dealing with a secondary surgery, which was based on an infection to clean out the wound. We know with these open fractures that's a real risk, so this is a risk that we go into it, and despite doing all due diligence to avoid that, unfortunately that happened at home. He's now probably be discharged from hospital early this week, which then he should get home and be able to recover at home. Does it guarantee that this doesn't happen again in the future? No, there's no guarantees with this, but we're really hopeful that the care that he's had over the past week or two in hospital setting has been able to clear all that infection, make sure that the wound is really looking good now from that open fracture. This has got nothing to do with the plates and the bone site. All of that is healing really well. This is a secondary thing that is more to do with the skin and an infection in that skin. So again, those bones, the plates, the bone is doing the healing that we want. We're just making sure the infection doesn't stay within his body so that he's healthy and fit and happy when he does come back into the club. Again, we've got to then follow up another scan and some review around blood markers and that kind of thing with Howie over the next week or two before we can provide a further update on when he can start the rehab process and start building him back into fitness. Lipinski with his shoulder had a really good milestone today, so was returned to run, which is really, really good. So he's at the 4-week mark post surgery. His rehab's going really well and he's now in a position where he can move his arm enough to run. Started a running program today. It's a real easy sort of running program over the next couple of weeks before we then hit the 6-week mark, and then hopefully we can return him to doing skills because he's got the mobility and range to do that, all in a non-contact fashion while we're building up his strength to get into contact. So really positive steps for Lipper, and we should see him progress really well from here. And then the final one's Charlie Deeney, came out of the boot last week, which was a really positive one from him. He's walking around without the boot now, pain-free, no crutches, and able to start some rehab where he's working through the foot and re-strengthening that foot and calf area. And he's progressing quite well, really, really good over the first 2 or 3 sessions. We know it's a long process with Charlie. This is a site that's been injured 3 times now. So we've just got to make sure that we're really, really diligent in this early phase, but he's really progressing as we expect at the moment, which is really positive news for him going forward. And thanks for listening. That's all for the Round 4 injury update.